All right, good afternoon. We have a new episode of the Trump 2024 reality show. It's guest starring Christie, the former New Jersey governor. Former President Trump and former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie sparred online Sunday after Christie predicted that Trump couldn't beat President Biden if they run against each other in the 2024 election. Christie, who endorsed Trump in 2018 after dropping his own campaign for the presidency, but has since become a vocal Trump critic, made the 2024 forecast Sunday on ABC News, where he is now a contributor. Trump fired back on Truth Social. Sloppy Chris Christie, the failed former governor of New Jersey, spent almost his entire last year in office campaigning in New Hampshire for the Republican nomination for president. Much like his term in office, where he left with an approval rating of just 9%, his presidential campaign was a complete disaster, Trump wrote. He endorsed me the following day, later recommended Chris Wray for the FBI. How did that work out? Went down in flames and then was salvaged. I think he means savaged. Now I understand. By ABC fake news. I never wanted him, the former president said of his former transition team chief. Christie responded later Sunday afternoon on Twitter, calling Trump's Truth Social post a new tantrum and dismissing the attacks. I'm the target of Donald Trump's new tantrum. None of his lies about me today bothered him when he asked me to prep him for every general election debate or offered me 3 different cabinet posts, Christie wrote on Twitter. The former governor noted that Trump is the only man to lose to Biden outside Delaware and added that the loss to Joe still stinks, referring to the 2020 presidential race. Biden's post-midterm honeymoon shows signs of ending. This is a stupid article that got thrown in here. Moderate Republican Governor Chris Sununu of New Hampshire, I don't pronounce this guy's name, agreed, arguing that Trump could secure the Republican nomination but likely couldn't beat Biden because the American people are going to push back against a very extreme candidate. Trump is the only major GOP candidate to announce a 2024 run so far, but a number of other prominent Republicans are expected to jump in the race, with Trump seen as a weakened candidate after his 2020 loss and backing of a number of failed candidates in 2022. So, Christie is an interesting character because he's someone who, when he ran against Trump, they kind of stayed away from each other. They never really directly had a back and forth, which is why it was very easy for Christie to then become someone that was part of Trump's team after he gave up running. And I'm going to have to defend Trump because that's what we do here. We try to tell the truth. Christie, in part, writes, none of his lies about me today bothered him. So I have to stop right there. Trump is not lying about Christie's approval rating being 9%. It was actually the lowest approval rating ever recorded for at least the New Jersey governor since they started polling. And Christie's response was, I don't care. That was basically his rebuttal. He's like, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm out of office soon anyway. And the rest of this is kind of accurate as well. I mean, he ran a presidential campaign that kind of went nowhere, didn't win any states. I can't remember any issues that he championed. So, and I mean, it's hard for me to dispute Trump's actual substantive claims about Christie. A complete disaster presidential campaign, a low approval rating as governor, the fact that he did endorse Trump after getting out of the race, which shows you that he at some point supported this man that he now criticizes and doesn't think could win. So all of that is correct on Trump's part. Now, when we get to Christie, because there's also some truth here, and I love the salvaged by ABC fake news, because a lot of these politicians that have no future do end up on some news program. So that was the same thing with Rick Santorum after he stopped being a senator. He was on TV. So it's not entirely a false thing for Trump to claim that he was salvaged by ABC. Although I do think Christie probably would have just gotten some other job. It's not hard when you were the executive of your state to find work. So the part where he says, this is where Christie says, none of his lies about me today bothered him when he asked me to prep him for every general debate or offered me 3 different cabinet posts. Well, there is this thing where a lot of people that were on Trump's side when he ran the first time, and even when he ran in 2020 as well, are now basically trying to rush him out the door by going, hey, get out of here. And what Christie says which is this line is, you want to talk about salvage something? I'm going to take the L out and just call it savage. The line where he says Trump is the only man to lose to Biden outside Delaware. That is true. I mean, I remember, as far as like I've read into Biden's 1988 and 2008 presidential campaigns, he got smushed. He didn't even come in the top three in either instance. If I remember correctly, he dropped out in 88 before voting even took place, and he dropped out in 2008, right when the Iowa caucus started. So very early into both of those respective races. And let's not forget, during the 2020 race, he lost the first three states to Sanders. So I'm sure it stings Trump more than anything else that he's this guy who ran for president twice, but he likes to pretend he didn't run in 2000, but ran for real in 2016 and was the front runner for most of the race. You know, by the time that they got to Iowa, it was pretty much, I'd say probably around New Hampshire is where it just really took off. But even before that, he was polling extremely well. So when you contrast the person who won their primary very easily, where there was really no competition, everybody was freaking out trying to consolidate around these other candidates, losing to a guy who, as far as I can tell, is the first Democratic nominee ever that lost the first three primary states and somehow still got the nomination. It is funny that he lost to someone like that, just when you think of the contrast and how unsuccessful Biden was before 2 years ago when it came to running for president. I'm sure the loss still stings because, Trump probably really thought he was going to, have his 4 years and then he'd have another run for president where he easily gets the Republican nomination and then just cleans up whoever the Democrat is. And he did not expect a guy who a lot of people thought after he was vice president was retired to come back and basically capsize his efforts. But Christie is someone who, a lot of Trump's critiques about him are right. His presidential campaign was a complete disaster. He won nothing. He endorsed Trump right after he got out the race. And he's someone who was so unpopular as governor, he has one of the lowest approval ratings ever recorded in the history of his state. Really, they're both telling the truth about each other. And when you had the, and I can't pronounce that guy's name, Snoo, they're talking about him running. I don't even know how to say his name. But where he says the American people are going to push back against a very extreme candidate, I think Christie and Sununu are on to something, which is a lot of moderate, middle-of-the-road voters who aren't even that left-wing do not like what happened on January 6th. And Trump, whether he likes it or not, is the figurehead of that. Even somebody like Pence, who was Trump's literal VP, has enough brains to when he's trying to run for president, be like, all right, I disavow this. I'm going to certify the results. We'll come back and get Biden out of here in 4 years, hopefully. Like, at least with them, with someone like that, he's extreme as well in his positions, which is why he defends every single thing that happened while Trump was president before that. But at least he's sensible enough to know this is stink. This is not something I want attached to me. And that's the reason why a lot of these corporate Republicans are actively, people like DeSantis, all these other people that would have kissed Trump's butt 3 years ago are now openly saying he can't win. He's going to fail. He's not going to do well. Those polls mean nothing. This is why, because they see the elephant in the room. They know regular voters are turned off by what happened on January 6th. They don't like insurrections. They don't like undemocratic efforts to overturn election results. So I really think that Christie is someone who probably still wants to run for president himself and either wants Trump to get out of the way, along with a lot of other Republicans, or he's probably... it's hard to really tell what his motivations are. I think he wants to also distance himself from Trump, but then he also doesn't really talk about his actual positions, because I think if he was serious, he'd say, hey, you know what? Insurrection aside, doing this, that, and the other was bad as well. But of course he won't do that because he agreed with pretty much all of it, just like 99% of the Republican the potential Republican field that we're getting this year. They all are the same on pretty much every issue. So that's why they don't really talk about substantive things all that much, and they get into these little internet crybaby tantrum back and forths.